Alright, so I've got a little bit of a MCU theory that's been cooking up in my little crazy brain lately, and I need to get it out. So, and I'm gonna say up front, I don't know if this has been done before, I don't know if this has been confirmed anywhere, and I really don't care. Mainly because other people have pointed out way more obvious stuff in Marvel movies, like it's some big find. At least mine's not that obvious. Anyway, I was watching some MCU movies with my dad earlier, and I got to thinking about Iron Man 3, specifically about how he gets his arc reactor moved at the end of that movie. And what I was thinking about was the actual wound left over there. I mean, it's a pretty big, perfectly circular hole just kind of left in Tony's chest that Pepper was able to fit her whole hand into. That's not something that just heals. That would have to be a pretty complex surgery, but when we actually see the scar in Civil War, it's a perfectly circular scar, and it really doesn't look that rough. And that just felt weird to me. And yeah, it's a comic book movie, so maybe we just suspend our disbelief and we move on with our lives. I mean, they've done crazier, but they've always been pretty consistent with taking wounds rather seriously. I mean, in Age of Ultron, when Hawkeye gets injured, they make a point of showing that he goes to Dr. Cho's machine, and he gets the synthetic flesh grafted over the injury so that it's all, and there's the theory. Yes, I know that actually has story relevance, but still led into the theory, so whatever. So, my theory is completely based on the fact that we have Iron Man 3, and then immediately, the next movie we see Tony in, Age of Ultron, he is healed, he doesn't have his arc reactor as a part of him anymore, and he's now met Dr. Cho, who has a machine that, as we said with Hawkeye, is able to make synthetic skin that grafts over injuries. Almost perfectly. You can hardly even tell that Hawkeye's been injured. And that feels purposeful to me. So what I think happened is, after Tony got his arc reactor removed, maybe he had some sort of a, temporary thing to plug up the injury, but he met Dr. Cho. They got to talking. She discussed this idea she had, and Tony basically volunteered to be one of the first test subjects of that so that he could fully recover from having his arc reactor removed without having too complex of a surgery. Maybe he even funded her research. I mean, that seems like the kind of thing that Stark Industries at that point in time would fund. Tony's doing his best to try to help people. We know that from the Stark grant. One movie later, actually, not even one movie later. Well, Civil War, less than a movie later, but pretty soon after. No, not less than, more than, but whatever. I'm getting jumbled. But then, so he perhaps funds Dr. Cho's research, helps get her machine built, is among the first to have it used on so that he can perfectly heal his injury from where his arc reactor was. And then they're pretty good work acquaintances. He's like, hey, do you mind if we set one of these up in Avengers Tower so that if one of the other Avengers gets injured, we can bring him over, you can do your magic, and, they'll be all good. We don't have to worry about major injuries anymore. Pretty handy in this line of work. And then, to continue to say thanks, he invites her to his big fancy party to celebrate them finally stopping Hydra and getting Loki's scepter back. I just think it's a nice, plugging of the timeline, sort of stitching events together. We know Tony had this big injury. One movie later, from Tony's perspective, we meet a lady whose whole thing is she's an amazing doctor who has this machine that can perfectly heal injuries with synthetic skin so real you can't even tell the difference. I think that's fun, but let me know what you think.